Hey guys, I'm still on PS4 and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm finally bringing you the Nacon review. So as you guys know, a couple of months ago, about 2 months ago, I did a first impression on the Nacon controller, and I didn't give any review on it since I obviously didn't know how the controller was. So now I've been playing with the controller, and let me just put something straight. Is the controller is extremely good, guys. It's a really good controller. So let's it's gonna be an informal review, guys. Nothing too special or too formal about this. So the price of the controller, guys, is extremely affordable. It's much more affordable than a SCUF controller. It's like buying a Ferrari or something. The SCUF controller is extremely expensive compared to a Nacon controller. I do not know about the Razer, so but the Nacon controller, I can tell you, is very much affordable for what it offers. So one of the key things of the Nacon controller that is extremely good is the right stick analog is extremely good. In other words, your aiming stick is extremely good for FPS. The triggers, guys, is fantastic. The triggers is one of the best things about this controller. I would say the analogs and the triggers, you know, the lower part, but not the bumper. The trigger itself and the right stick is probably you know, the best I've ever used, you know, from a SCUF controller. Besides that, the build of the controller, guys, is definitely better than a SCUF controller. I can promise you this. The build of the controller is extremely strong. I'm gonna try and show you guys. As you can see, the analog stick itself is that steel. It's like a steel plate around the analog. So in other words, your analogs will never get scratchy on the sides, and they don't wear down like the plastic analogs does. So that's really good. However, things that you have to get used to is obviously the off-centered analog sticks like Xbox One, and then the analog clicking itself. Like if you want to press L3 or R3, and when you want to press L1 and R1, at the beginning they are quite hard to click, you know, itself. So that's something you have to get used to, and also it's something that you have to sort of wear down, so later on it will get easier to click it. You know, about if you play like a month or so, then it will start getting easier. One thing that was difficult for me to get used to was the fact that I gripped my SCUF controller on average a little bit different than other players would. Normally players would just rest the controller in their hand, whereas myself, I with my right hand go on top of the controller. I almost play from this position to this position. So that makes it sometimes, not sometimes, at the beginning it was quite hard for me. The fact that I used to use L1 and R1 for aiming and shooting, and on the Nacon I was not able to transfer that same sort of playstyle, but I am happy that I transferred to L2 and R2, since the triggers are amazing, guys. The configuration setup of the Nacon is by far better than the SCUF controller. By far. You have a program that you download onto your computer, and there you can configure your analog, you can configure your triggers. You can actually, just to make this clear, guys, at the back there are 4 bumpers, whereas the normal SCUF controller only has 2. I can actually configure to lean on RainbowSixSiege with this back bumpers if I wanted to. So it's just to show you how good the configuration setup of the Nacon is, and also I can actually choose to lean with the bumpers at the top as well, and then shoot with L1 and R2. So the button mapping and the configuration setup of the Nacon is by far better than the SCUF that I had, which was just a normal SCUF. What was it, Infinite or something? It was some sort of pro SCUF controller. But so let's get this straight. Do I think the Nacon is a better controller than the SCUF, than the normal SCUF that I used to have? yes, by far it's a better controller. However, it was quite difficult for me to get used to it simply because of the way I gripped the Nacon controller, the SCUF controller, and the way I was changing my L1 and L2 buttons. So that was quite something to get used to. So what makes the SCUF better is the simple factor that it's already a PS4 controller, so there's not anything you have to get used to except for the bumpers at the back, or the paddles, if you want to call it like that. So so if you are not too hardcore gamer, you just would like to be able to crouch or vault or jump in other games without taking off your fingers off your joysticks, then the SCUF is probably the best. I would recommend then just get the cheapest SCUF. You don't need a brilliant SCUF controller for that. However, if you are taking gaming sort of seriously, rather go for the Nacon controller. It's a good buy, guys. It's a cheap controller for what it offers. I cannot believe the price, what they actually ask for this controller. I mean, if you compare it to a normal DualShock 4 controller, it's almost insane how they managed to pull this off by selling this controller for the price it is. So obviously I do not know what it costs in other countries, but if I have to sort of estimate, it is about 20 to 30% more expensive than a normal DualShock 4 controller. So that's a really good buy if you do want to have that option of the paddles at the back of the controller. So yes, I do think the Nacon controller is a better controller than the SCUF, guys. That's just a simple factor. The only beneficial aspect that you're going to get from the SCUF is the fact that it's already a PS4 controller, so it's extremely easy to get used to the SCUF controller. But Nacon is my choice, guys. Definitely by far a better controller in my opinion. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you again.